welcome Justin to Sippin' Sunday, the podcast. Please let the listeners know what you're sipping on or what your favorite drink is.
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to join you. Right now, I got my daddy sippy cup, and we're sipping on some Basil Hayden Kentucky
Ooh,
bourbon. Definitely by far one of my favorites. A
okay.
nice, sweet, not too strong whiskey, but a really enjoyable one.
Okay. I have water and I also have my coffee. We have two different things going on today.
All right.
And so I'm super excited to have you on here. We've known each other now for 10 years. Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, it has been 10, well, almost 11 because we're in 2024 now.
Mm-hmm.
But I met you through higher ed, our former lives, because we're past that, which we'll get a little into. But the first question that I love to ask everybody is, can you let me know at what age do you feel like you became an adult, if you reached that age yet?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was at lunchtime with my baby girl and my wife. I was sitting down trying to think about that answer, and it came to me. Um, in undergrad, like I had the privilege of my parents being able to pay for my undergraduate degree, and so outside
That's
of
good.
scholarships and whatever else was there, and so like many individuals who decide to go matriculate through some institution, they decide to move off campus. And I never forget, and I tell people this, to me, the scariest moment of undergrad, there's two moments. One is when you first start, and one is when you end. And that was the moment that I realized I became an adult, but it was a specific issue. Not issue, but a
Okay.
story. So basically, my parents said, I will get you through undergrad. And so that meant, paying for tuition and fees. And
Mm-hmm.
then I had an apartment, I lived off campus. And so they gave me a little money to take care of that. Like, here's your set money, you make it work. Everything outside of that, that's on you. Everything you want to do with being a member of Alpha Alpha or you're traveling, that's on you to figure that out. And I never forget the week after graduation being like, okay, hey, I'm checking my account. When is the next deposit coming in? And my mom said, there's no more deposits coming in. And I was like, what do you mean there's no more deposits coming in? She's like, I told you that me and your dad would get you through undergrad. You have officially finished undergrad, so it's now your responsibility. And that was the moment that I realized, oh, yo, I'm fully an adult. And I had to figure it out. I remember I had got into a master's program,
Mm-hmm.
didn't know how I was going to pay for it. I just was excited about getting into and starting a master's degree in the fall. And the moment I realized like you truly are responsible for everything is when I had to figure out how I was going to pay for it. There was no more reliance on anybody's money. And of course, I knew my parents had me, right? Like they had me if I really, really needed it. But I appreciate the fact that they said and stuck to their boundary. They set a hard rule and said, no, nah, this is it. So at Mother's Day, we celebrated. Congratulations. The next week we had that party. Everybody had a good time. Money and celebration, accolades and things were coming in. And that is the point where we realized it was all done. And it's time for you to step up.
So, did you not believe them when they said that you would be done when you finish undergrad?
Honestly, I kind of didn't. I think initially I was like, I mean, at some point it's going to be a transition, but I didn't think it was going to be so abruptly. It
Yeah.
felt like, yo, we're in a celebratory moment. Why are we now deciding as parents that we want to relinquish a little bit of control and put full responsibility into this individual? While at the same time realize like I should have been holding myself accountable. Like at the
Yeah.
end of the day, this is truly not their responsibility. This was a choice. And that's part
Yeah.
of the conversation was you decided you want to go get a master's degree. You decided that you wanted to go pursue something in a different path. And so for that, that's your choice, and those choices have consequences. And it's not consequence in the negative, it's consequence in I gotta let you go and let you grow up.
Yes. And I think that that is like admirable of your parents, because adulting is hard. Adulting is learned from the adults that we've had in our lives, like as we were growing up. And I think there's a good balance of helping and not hand holding. And it sounds like that's kind of like what the experience was for you with your parents paying for school, that they helped you, and then they, like you said, it held you accountable to the boundary they set, versus like dragging it on of continuing to pay. And not that they wouldn't help you if you needed something, but they were like, you're not gonna just be like out here balling on these thousands of dollars anymore, like, because you're going
Absolutely.
to get a master's degree and do something different now. So we're doing what we said we were going to do. And that taught you
Mm-hmm.
responsibility, or especially with money early on, because you had to figure out what were you going to do when your parents were going to help you.
Absolutely. And throughout, I think one of the lessons they taught me very early on is that um, money from your parents is a privilege, it is not a requirement. And
Yes.
so,
Yeah.
I think that's the difference between childhood and adulting is that adulting, you realize that the privilege and the requirement is for you to figure out how you're going to manage both of those. And
Yeah.
so, I appreciate all the lessons they taught me and being able to navigate that by saying, no, this is how much we're going to give you, and this is what we're specifically giving it to you for. And so, when you decide
Yeah.
to do things that are outside of the confines of that, this is where you have to step in. And they could have
Yeah.
very much probably been like, okay, here you go, but no, that's not a way they were parenting at any point in my life.
Yeah, I think that's black parents too, because like for me, I felt like my parents, like similar to what you're saying, is like if I needed something, I always had what I needed. But I wasn't even the child to ask for like, can you buy me like this $1,000 thing? Granted, when we were growing up, things didn't cost that much in comparison. I feel like the biggest things were like an iPad, an iPod, when the iPod, like those brick ones came out. I wanted that so bad. I didn't get it, and when I did, it was because I bought it myself. So, yes,
Hmm.
parents don't have to give you money for things that are not necessities, for sure.
No, no, not at all.
And so you went from undergrad to going to get your master's, and then did
Hmm.
you go to undergrad for what you thought you were going to work in, like that field that you thought you were going to work in?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, to be honest, I believe that the reason why I chose my undergraduate degree, that major, was a pivot out of engineering. I
Okay.
was looking for something that was engineering adjacent, but didn't require the chemistries, the calculuses, differential equations, all these other
Yep.
maths and sciences that I recognized very early on in the first semester that this is not where you need to be. Like you may like engineering, and I think I like the idea of what an engineer could do, but more importantly, I like the idea of the amount of money the engineers are going to make. But did I
Yeah.
really want to be an engineer? No, not at all. And I never forget going. I'm graduating from the University of Arkansas. My bachelor's degree is in computer information systems, and there in Northwest Arkansas, we have three major corporations: Tyson Corporation. So anything Tyson, chicken, beef
Hmm.
products, all of that's there. JB Hunt Trucking Company. So if you see a JB Hunt and just look on the back
Oh
of that
yeah.
truck, you're gonna probably see something that says Rogers, Arkansas, or something Arkansas, and Walmart Corporation. Like everybody knows Walmart. And so
For
the
sure.
trajectory, or really the path upon graduating from the Walton College, I mean, we're named after Sam and Walton. Like, so the path after for a Walton graduate is to go to probably work in one of these companies. And I
Hmm.
never forget going to the Walmart corporate office to visit for a summer program with some students. And I remember we took them there and we walked around and I just saw how the corporate office looked. I saw all the cubicles and I said, oh no, like my skin itched at the idea of being in a cubicle. I felt so confined. I felt like we were each, if I were in that environment, every person was just in their space doing their
Yeah.
work. And I couldn't understand, like, how do you foster collaboration? Like, how do you foster creativity and new ideas and buy into what is the motto of the brand or the focus of whatever we're doing if we're all in these little cubicles? And then you got a
Yeah.
team lead and then you got a manager. It was just like, this is not for me. And I think having gone to my first, not think, having gone to my first NASPA conference, my first, I think it was a regional, and that was
Hmm.
in Colorado, Breckenridge, Colorado. I had never been to Breckenridge, Colorado. I'm like, Black people don't go to Colorado. I don't know no black people in Colorado. I do now,
Because you
but
went.
then I didn't, and so I went and was like, I'm in Breckenridge, Colorado. I don't know too many people who leave Arkansas. So let alone it's the furthest maybe Memphis or Dallas. Like that's
Yeah.
just like to me Arkansas part two. But the idea of being there was one thing. And then when I went to my first national conference in DC, and I was like, I'm in DC and it's a lot of people here. And a lot of people are interested in this one specific field. And
Yeah.
they seem to have smiles on their faces. And they seem to like to talk to each other and build relationships. And I got this wonderful thing called I forget the name of it, but basically when you get money, per diem. There we go.
Oh
And
yeah.
when the university gave me per diem, I said, "Oh, this is definitely the move. You mean y'all gonna give me money to go here? This is where I need to be." You know.
And was this
And
when
so
you
I
were a
think, yeah,
professional or in your master's program? You realized all this.
this was an undergrad. So then when I was
Okay.
in my master's program, I still received some of the same university benefits because I was
Yep.
on assistantship. And so because of the relationships I had built and I was doing my master's degree at the same institution, I was still able to reap the benefits of not only the brand, but being able to get some money to travel. Like I didn't
Yeah.
have to pay for my conferences out of pocket. So I was very
Yeah.
fortunate in that way.
Yeah, that's a similar thing with me as well because I went to school for psychology was my degree. Thankfully for me, I do feel like my degrees I'm getting return on investment, and not many people can say that. But because I went for psychology and then my master's is in higher ed, I do feel like I'm using them. Am I using it the way I thought I was going to? No, I wanted to be a social worker or a guidance counselor, which again, kind of am doing that now, just not with that title. And it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting for higher ed specifically that like nobody goes to school knowing it's a field, but then because we
Mm-hmm.
had such great undergrad experiences and we were able to be exposed, we like learned more about it and became interested.
Mm-hmm.
Because Iowa, that was not a place I was going on my own, but they paid
Yeah.
for us to go to Iowa, so we went to
Mm-hmm.
Iowa and we had a great time. Would
Yeah.
I go back? No, unless somebody's paying for me to go back. But
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
those things matter even outside of career. I just feel like in development, because you said like you got to travel a lot, and I feel like as a kid, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in Arkansas, I don't know how much traveling or places you were going outside of Arkansas before you got to undergrad and you got to go to like different conferences and meet different people that were from like all over the place.
Not a lot. Like, I mean, I had the privilege of some vacations,
Yeah.
childhood vacations, church vacations, and trips.
Amen.
But in comparison to the amount that I did in undergrad, no. I mean, undergrad, I was gone. I was on a plane 3, 4 times a year, and the university paid for it. I didn't pay a single dime.
Yeah, because you
So,
got involved on
even to
campus.
get, yeah, and to even expand on that point of like utilizing the degrees now now I can say I can pinpoint what I am doing in my current work and where I got that from each of the
Yeah.
degrees.
Yeah.
At that point in time, no, absolutely not. I
Yeah.
couldn't say, yeah, I'm gonna use this information systems degree to do this thing. No, but now I can easily make that
And let's not forget
leap.
too, Dr. Grimes. Put some respect on the name. Forgot to say that. You might have said it in the bio when I read it, but we can't forget that because that is very important.
Absolutely, a lot of work, a lot of work.
Yes. And so, I mean, this is not pivoting a little bit, but kind of going into it without intentionally going into it from what you've mentioned already. How did you start your business and your career pivot? Because you're not in higher ed formally anymore, but like you're higher ed
Mm-hmm.
adjacent because you created your own pathway with your business.
Yeah. So I the way I got to the business, well, the first business I would say that I had was with sneaker reselling. I'm a huge sneaker person. I just love shoes, and so that was the first one, and that just kind of I just kind of fell into it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in which I received, I won't state the company, but the company made a mistake and sent me two pairs, and I said, "Why am I keeping both of these? I can sell one." And that's exactly what I did, and that just kind of started me to bite the bug, I bit the bug, drank the Kool Aid, drank the juice, sneaker reselling before it became a major thing
Yeah.
in 2019. And so that's when I started. You got my size, and you got my size is still present, but I don't do as much with it
Yep.
compared to apply to graduate school. And so what really got me to my LLC, stick with it, and apply to graduate school under that is that I kept seeing people going for opportunities and feeling like they're just stuck. I kept seeing people in positions, and especially in higher ed, and it's like I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I just don't feel I don't see the compensation happening. You
Yep.
know, my mentor told me this is the way we got to do it, and I was like, there's got to be another path. There's another path that we can utilize our skill sets and our knowledge that would be more effective and probably more cost, probably more wealth building and cost
Mm-hmm.
effective, And so one of the things that happened was I remember being saying, one of my former students at Georgia asked me and she said, "Hey, would you mind coming to do a workshop? I know you do some things related to DEI. Would you mind coming to do a workshop for us?" And I said, "Yeah, cool. I'll do it." Like, she's like, "What's the topics?" I was like, "Well, here's about 5 options, right? So pick one, let me know, and I'll come out and do it." And when I got that check in the mail, I said, "Oh, okay, this is something we need to take serious." And at that point, I had already again had the sneaker business, so I was getting the tax advantages, and
Yeah.
that's kind of really what got me into the part two of the sneaker pieces is the tax advantages. Right, I had an at-home business, and I remember listening to I think it's Lynn Richardson. She was talking about why you need to have an at-home business, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
cool, I'm gonna do that. But apply to graduate school really manifested when I was on the road. I would go on the
Okay.
road as a recruiter trying to get students to pursue graduate degrees. And I can have a conversation with you and say, "Hey, we got this wonderful degree, a master's degree in computer science." And you would say, "Great, I know the institutional name. I really want to do this master's degree." And
Mm-hmm.
that's the extent of the conversation. But I didn't talk to you about how you're going to have funding. I didn't talk to you about the culture within the department, the culture within the institution. I didn't talk to you about where you're originally located and are you going to move? Can you financially afford it? Do you want to do it part time, full time? Like, I didn't talk about any specifics. I
Yeah.
just was talking about that. And I found that people were entering into programs without having a full understanding of what they were about to get into. And I
Yeah.
didn't want to see another person go down that path because I know the data and the information in terms of individuals who will complete a degree and those who won't, particularly at the
Yeah.
post baccalaureate graduate level. And so that's what got me to really wanting to start the business is that I tell people I want people to make an informed decision. I don't want people to enter into this randomly. Like I just don't go to a dealership and be like, today I'm gonna buy a car. I hope that I would do some research. I don't just decide to
Yeah.
go talk to a real estate agent and say, I want to buy a house today. Like, no, you need to take some time thinking about this and see
Yeah.
if this is gonna meet your needs and your goals.
Yeah. And that's like so good. And I think again, a theme of adulting is that we're not prepared. And like, that's really why I started my business to spread awareness to all facets of adulting and bring people like you and other individuals that either have businesses or resources or are willing to share their own paths because adulting, you just wake up and you feel like you're an adult for various different
Mm-hmm.
reasons that have happened in your life. But like I'm just reflecting on undergrad and grad school and then working with young adults now too. It's like they just say like I want to go to school and you're like, "Okay, why do you want to go to school?" Or to your point of like, "Oh, NYU, it's a great school. Like, just sign me up." Have you been to New York City? Have you like lived in a city? Like you're in rural Texas, going to go to one of the largest cities in the world. Like, let's think about this. Like, okay, your
Mm-hmm.
first year you're going to get scholarships, but what are you going to do your second year? What are you going to do if you lose your scholarship because of your grades? Like, and I think that people get like anxious when you start asking them questions like that and really like breaking it
Mm-hmm.
down because they're like, I just want to go to school. Like, I just want to do this thing. But you're like,
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. And I'm not trying to deter you from doing that thing, but let's realize like what that actually means and takes, especially with such large financial decisions like grad school, undergrad, that they will be very quick to give you a loan, but you don't even understand what any of that means. And then 6 months after you graduate or you stop going, they're knocking at your door. Joseph Robinette's not doing what he said he's going to do. And then what
Mm-hmm.
happens? Like you're left with
It
all
is
these
really,
issues.
I think it's very interesting how we do education in the US. And so I look at it like, from the point at which you're kindergarten through 12th grade, 10 and 11 years, we've created this structure for you. Here's a bell, here's your assignments, we follow up.
Yes, and there's no
And
structure.
then at the point when you finish and we say you should go get that bachelor's degree or that associate's degree, and we expect you at the age of 18 to be able to fully adapt to that environment and be fully responsible, capable, great decision makers on a huge probably one of the largest initial financial decisions that most human beings make. And I
Yeah.
think that's wild to me. In the same way with graduate school, is that we say because you completed this one process, surely you can navigate these other ones. Surely you understand financial aid and loans, and you understand time management and organizing your items and reading the
Yeah.
syllabus. And you may or may not, but that does not guarantee that you're going to be successful to the next stage or the next level.
Yeah. And I think like with grad school specifically, again, our paths are pretty unique in that at least from my experience is like higher ed when you were an undergrad and somebody identified that you were going to go into higher ed, you kind of had a roadmap and were set up for grad school already where we didn't have as many of those barriers because almost everybody went and had an assistantship so you weren't paying for your master's degree. So I thankfully didn't have to pay for mine, and I know many other people didn't. So it's different in our case than having to go from like you are an accounting major in undergrad and you're going to continue that in grad school. Like I think that somebody like
Mm-hmm.
that would for sure face a lot of the issues that you explain and what your business is helping to do, because I personally wouldn't even know where to go or start with if for some reason I wanted to pursue another master's degree. Like how do you handle that and go about it, especially when people take time off in between undergrad to grad school and you're
Mm-hmm.
working full time or you have kids, like you're moving, whatever the situation is. I think it's just very different than our traditional experience of undergrad straight to grad school. We were in mentorship programs and we had that support that like our businesses are trying to provide to others. So I'm grateful for my experience, but I realized that like if I didn't have those opportunities, I wouldn't know what to do either. I'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
where do I figure this stuff out?
Yeah, and that's the reason why I wrote the book, 20 questions to answer before you apply to graduate school, because I wanted people to have a set of information that they can draw from. I wanted people to develop a strategy and a plan and have a timeline that they could follow so that they wouldn't just feel like I don't know what to do and I'm just going to jump into this thing because it seems like it's the easiest thing to do.
Yep.
And even our experiences of being able to go into higher ed, and my master's degree is even in higher ed because my GRE was terrible, my GPA was low, and so I had to go to adult education. I had, luckily the department head said I can't let you in, but here's a great program you could go for, and I chose human resource education. And the reason why is I thought, well, if this higher ed thing don't work, the idea of hiring and firing people or
Yeah.
training individuals or offering some level of professional development in human resource capacity seems very intriguing. It won't put me in no cubicle. It'll get me out
Yeah.
in front of people. And I'm glad that I chose that degree. And that was an online master's degree too. If that early online master's degree program,
Okay.
so I'm really thankful to have had that route. But the time that I've spent, working in my career before I went back to higher ed, that was like 6 years before I
Yeah.
back to get the doctoral degree. And at that point, the GRE had changed, requirements for graduate school was
Yeah.
different. And I was really much a novice, right? And so many individuals, when they start to think about the career pivot, the career change, regardless if you're first gen or multi gen, many of us
Yeah.
start from the same position in place of I know this thing right here isn't enough, or there's something else out there that I want to do. Or they may know that, in order for me to get to this next thing, to get to that promotion, I got to have this. And that's great. Like, that's the motivation, the initial motivation. But they may not know the process. And
Yeah.
that's what can often cause people to stop is the idea of the process. The
Yeah.
idea of, I haven't written a paper in 5 years or 5 months, and that scares people. The idea that like I haven't experienced rejection in that way because I was a stellar student, got every award, or even as employee, I've been a stellar employee. I've
Yeah.
been climbed the corporate ladder, and so I may experience some difficulties, some challenges. But the idea that somebody's going to tell me no, that I don't get admitted,
Yeah.
that scares a lot of people. And
Yeah.
so that's the part of
Yeah.
adulting that we have to learn, which is how do we manage and deal with rejection or the idea that we may be rejection we
I
experience
literally just
rejection.
wrote that down of like that's something I need to do something on, because I say this every time I'm talking to a guest, especially when it's somebody that I know. I love the conversation just because like even though your business is talking about the process for graduate school, I think anybody that listens to this will still get motivation and inspiration about like just being in a process and like how to move forward and how to overcome and like how to like try to map out a plan or goals for whatever it is that they want to do. Because
Mm-hmm.
another part about adulting that is just not talked about enough, and it goes kind of to your point when you were saying like K through 12 and education, it's so structured, like people are telling you what to do, helping you. Like you really won't make it as an adult if you don't take accountability for your own actions, but you're never taught how to take accountability for your actions because K through 12 is kind of like, oh, like you hit Johnny, like go sit in the corner and like think about what you did. Or like, oh, you
Mm-hmm.
like tried to skip school, we're gonna put you in detention. Like, okay, those are punitive outcomes of your actions, but it's not explaining to you like why that's wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
then translating to when you're an adult, like if you miss work, you can get fired. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't show up or pay something, you are then like having debt and like getting bill collectors calling you. Like I feel like the outcomes for adulting of you not doing stuff is way more severe than school. And obviously, the
Absolutely.
outcomes in school would never be that extreme. But I don't know when it connects to you as an adult that, like, if I don't get myself together, like, nobody's going to. People can help you, but they can't
Mm-hmm.
make you do something. And then you're just going to be in
Yeah.
a horrible situation and realize, like, oh, I got to get myself together.
We create a bit of a false narrative in the sense of like, using your example, you hit this child, there's a negative consequence. But what happens when you work for an employer or your manager does something that was bad, that had an impact, but they still get rewarded to promotion? They still get their job. Like that's really hard to cognitively like, hold on, because you taught
Yeah.
me that when you do wrong, there is a consequence. And usually that is the taking away of something or the removing of something or some form of punishment. Even our laws are
Yeah.
somewhat set up in that way. But when it comes to employer relationships, it's not congruent to what we learn
No.
as children.
Or even just the world of like even crimes. I mean, we're not gonna go down that rabbit hole, but like
Mm-hmm.
crimes, like that's what that system set up the judicial system for. Like if somebody does something, there's an outcome. But we've seen people that should, in my opinion, not have just been let go are just let go.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've seen videos, we've seen
Absolutely.
audio, we've seen all this stuff, but for some reason they're let go. And that reason, again, is not what we're going to talk about today, but
Mm-hmm.
like that also is not aligning with what we're taught or how things should go. It's not black and white at all, which people have a hard time dealing with because all the gray and all the feelings and like emotions of like, this is so and so's daughter, this is so and so's this, so and so's that,
Mm-hmm.
this person has money, that gets into how things do or do not happen sometimes, which is not fair, but life isn't fair and
It's
goes back
not.
to rejection.
Yeah, and you made me think about, and I should probably just this probably be helpful for folks. And so I tell people that the business apply to graduate school is more than just applying to graduate school. I really primarily am helping people navigate transitions.
Yeah.
That's ultimately at the foundation of what is happening. Is that transition from undergrad to grad, the transition from graduate master's degree to maybe doctoral degree, from full time employment to part time student or full time student? It's a transition, right? There's something
Yeah.
that happened that's causing that. And so, I can remember back to, and some people ask me, like, at what point did you know you wanted to go back to get the doctoral degree? And I'll never forget working in residential life. I had a huge staff. I think I had like 25 RAs, 5 desk assistants. I just had a lot of people that worked under me. And I had the largest buildings. I had around 1,500 students. And I was doing stuff with Greek life and doing stuff with the leadership office. I
Hmm.
was I was doing too much as an adult at that point. And that's a part of adulting too, is realizing when you're doing too much.
Yes.
And so I remember it was I had just finished with our orientation, and I had set a goal for this to be the best, most efficient, effective orientation. And I had coworkers who were offended by that. They were offended at the idea that I wanted to strive for the best, and that the feedback was, man, this is by far the best training we've ever experienced. And I just couldn't conceive of it. And so I was just like, yo, I don't know if I'm in the right place. you know? And even, to add to that, I was working at an institution at the time that I felt um they were not going to provide structure in a way to me to help what we claim, which is to prepare
Yeah.
people to enter into being citizens of the world, right?
Yeah.
I felt like if I didn't like some as a student, I can call this number. They had this thing called the President's Action Line, and you could call the number, student, parent, whoever, and if they didn't like something, more than likely it was going to get funneled down and get fixed by you. And then I was like, I
Yeah.
can't do this no more. And I just remember that negative feedback. I remember that system. I remember students lying on me. I remember employees lying on me. And I said, it's time for me to go do something different. And I don't know if this is the place to do it. And I'm
Yeah.
I'm doing my best work. I'm doing what I was contractually hired to do, but I'm recognizing that the work I'm hired to do is not what thrives in this environment. So
Yeah.
I'm hired to manage students and behavior. I'm hired to reduce building costs, to decrease the amount of money we're spending on damages. I'm here to create some structure in a building that historically has some issues with structure. And but really what I was supposed to be doing was to build relationship and
Yep.
maintain relationship, to maintain the brand. I didn't know that. Nobody was telling me that
Because
this was a part of the
politics
culture
in
or the
work.
brand. I didn't know
Exactly.
the politics, right? And so when I'm doing my work, what I'm think I'm supposed to be doing, it is counter politics, and thus created a lot of tension for me in the environment is trying to figure out what to do. And so I'm sure a lot of people are probably listening and like, what happens when you feel that moment like people are against you, they're orchestrating your demise, or you just know like there's something else. And that's when I started to look at doc programs. And I really only looked at two. University of Georgia, University of Texas, Austin, I got into UGA. And thankful that that happened. But I
Yeah.
had to create a structure at that point for the exit. Here's an important
Yep.
thing that I would tell people about adulting too, as an employee, is at the point you know you're starting to want to exit out, don't tell nobody at that job. Keep that
Yes.
information absolutely
Yes.
to yourself and start organizing your structure. Keep your day-to-day operations as the same, but when you have gaps in time, that's when you organize. That's when you create the structure, your plan, and
Yeah.
you implement all the things you need to prepare your exit. So I specifically remember like, okay, they got a certificate program. Y'all need somebody to go to do this? Cool. I'm gonna go there. You need to meet somebody to take some students somewhere? Cool. I'm gonna use that opportunity to take those students to this conference to then network with another institution or talk to someone in this position to
Yeah.
learn more about what they do and what are the skills to get there. Cool.
Yeah.
So when I come back, I'm gonna work on those skills and develop those because that's what they said is needed to get to that level. And so I always tell people, before you quit or exit a position, extract as much as you can from the
Yeah.
organization, from the school, from the place before you exit, and make
Yeah.
sure that you take with you your knowledge. I never forget this woman, Unique Jones. She created the company, because of them we can.
Hmm.
So she created that brand and that company, wonderful website. And so and some other stuff that she's done as well. Now that she's a parent. But I remember she was on Lovey Ajayi Jones'
Oh, I love
podcast.
her.
She was on Professional Troublemaker. And on there
Love the
she
podcast.
said, never forget that your title is rented. She says, so when I was working at JP Morgan Chase as this role, my role was rented. But what I own is my name, my brand, my skills, and my abilities. So take that with you. Let the job keep the title and whatever other things that come along with that, but take you with you wherever you go. And that's
Yes.
always
Amen.
sat with me in all the work that I do. And that's part of the reason why, I tell folks the work that I do is to help people navigate that transition. But more importantly, I work with career professionals. I work with a lot of working professionals
Yeah.
now who want to go back to school. I work with students who are reached a point where they're like, this, I'm about to finish, or they've had a gap year, or they've finished and they're
Yeah.
trying to figure out what to do next. I'm helping people navigate that transition. And fortunately, the conversation I often talk about with them is graduate school. But
Yeah.
I'm really just a person who helps people get to the place where they want to go
Yeah,
next.
because I mean, I think that graduate school, and I appreciate again knowing and clarifying because again, I know you, I've seen what you post, I support it anyway. I be reposting, I be telling my students, but now I feel like I hope that people will look at your work, get the book, go follow you on Instagram to see that like yeah, you might say like, oh, apply to grad school, but you can still find value out of just like wanting help and encouragement in a transition to whatever it is that they're trying to do. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are having issues with career now because either you went to school for something that you couldn't find a job in, so you're doing something
Mm-hmm.
else. You went to school, you got your dream job, you realize it wasn't it anymore because of things that you're saying of like
Mm-hmm.
policies, just your personal alignments, your own like thoughts and you as a person growing. And I feel like that's what it was for me in higher ed. Like people have asked me, would you go back to traditional higher ed? No. I've said no since I left traditional higher ed. Can that maybe change one day? Yes, because people change, your thoughts change, the world
You got to
changes.
pay me a lot of money, a
Yes.
whole lot of money.
But right now, my answer is no for a lot of things that you're saying of that. Politics is not something I'm willing to deal with. I understand that at some levels, sometimes you do have to do that, but the types of politics that I was dealing with in higher ed, for me personally, is not something that I would like to do. And I make that clear to people when I'm talking to them, when I've been on committees, when I'm doing stuff. I'm like, I don't do politics. I will hear you, I will listen, I will play nice. I will do what it is that I need to do. But the second that I feel like it's not right or it's unethical or it's going against something that like I just personally believe, I'm not doing it. And sometimes that was really hard for people to hear because they're like, well, you just have to do this. And I'm like, I'm not a we just have to do this type of person, like at
Mm-hmm.
all. I will do it to keep the peace and, like you're saying, protect myself, do what I need to do, but I will definitely vocalize it. If it's not received well, I won't say anything again. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's just like a hard part about jobs because for higher ed, like going back to rejection or going back to like your fulfillment and like you've never been told no or you never thought like things were going to be like so bad because you're quote unquote like the perfect student leader and you're the perfect
Mm-hmm.
employee and all this stuff, like that really doesn't matter if the job is raggedy like or the place doesn't want to support you as a
Mm-hmm.
person because we've had conversations about my horrible job experience that like I really was like, is it me? And I would be asking people that know me, like, is it me? Like, what's going on? And at first, like in the beginning with like slip ups, because everybody's human and making mistakes, they were like, well, maybe you can do this, maybe you can do that, like try this, try that. But after months have gone by, they're like, oh no, like it's this place. And I have
Mm-hmm.
even told my current director like a synopsis of the scenario. And I've been at this new job for almost 7 months. They were like, I can't even believe that that would happen. Like, what? Like, I don't even
Mm-hmm.
believe that. And I was like, me either, now that I'm out of it. But in it, I was like going crazy.
but you know what that is? That's discernment. That's the discernment that I
Yeah.
think as the part of adulting is we learn and trust ourselves more.
Yes.
And we hope that we can, and for those that don't, we hope that we can begin to build that skill set to trust your intuition. You can hopefully you begin to say this environment for me as a woman doesn't feel safe for me as a woman, and I'm not crazy, I'm not wild in the mind for thinking these things. I know what I am seeing, I know what I'm experiencing, and believe that. Write that down, document these experiences, and then do
Yeah.
with that what you're going to do with it. Either stay in the environment and cause disruption in the environment or leave the environment. That's truly
Yeah.
the three options we have. But that discernment and setting that boundary, it takes time to build that skill set.
Yeah.
Because the place I'm at now, I was not there 10 years ago. 10 years
Yeah.
ago, I was still working in residential life and had just finished the GRE. I'm looking at today's date. Like I just was waiting to hear back if I
Yeah.
got into a graduate program or not. And that in person at that time was willing to just go whatever the system said. I'm gonna be
Yeah.
quiet. I'm gonna keep my head down. But I'm publicly I'm professionally good, but I'm privately failing. I'm privately feeling like I'm failing. I'm privately
Yeah.
feeling anxiousness. I'm feeling like I like something is wrong, and I can't put my hand on it. I can't place what it is. And now in hindsight, I could be like, nope, I can tell you what that was. That was racism. That was black male fear. That was gender discrimination. That was a
Yeah.
toxic work environment. I can put words to it now. And even then, some of these words weren't even present at the time.
Yeah.
And so, one of the beauties of what you had was that you at least trusted yourself enough to ask other people. And
Yeah.
that
Cause
I
I
think
was
that's
like,
part of
this is getting
adulting is learning
crazy.
to ask other people.
Yeah, because it really was getting crazy. Like I was asking past supervisors, people who have just worked with me on different stuff, and then unfortunately, it was like rolling into just other things of my life, of like outside work stuff. So I was like, something's got to give here, and then eventually we just left, and we are in a way better place. Thank the good Lord,
Absolutely.
because that was
Yeah.
that was a time to be alive.
I tell people like I miss certain aspects of higher education, but I am privileged and glad to be in the position that I'm at now where I'm on the outside. And my
Yeah,
outside work is to help fix the inside work.
yeah,
And at the
I
point that I
agree.
can't do that, then I wish people nothing but the best going forward.
And I completely agree with that too, because I think that I would not be where I am without working in higher ed and my experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is what gave me just like the schools I've been able to speak at, the students that I've still been able to impact and that have then like gone to working. Actually, one of my students, like had me speak to his students like 2, 3 times, like at his job that he works at. So I am grateful for the experiences that I've had. I just can't foresee myself going back to the traditional. Like, I would love to teach a
Yeah.
class. I would love to keep doing the speaking engagements with them, but to do the res life, the student activities, no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, I understand.
Mm-mm. And lastly, just asking because I mean, you well, everybody, and I wrote this down as a point too, that I feel like millennials are very multifaceted with a lot of interest, and we have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things we do. So you are a husband, a father, you're just a person yourself too. You have your business, 2 businesses. You have your master's degree, doctorate degree, bachelor's degree. You're an alpha. Like there's a lot of identities and things that you hold. And also, I know just for you, your mental health is important. Like just keeping yourself together and well because of these identities. So, how do you balance all those things or
Yeah.
learn to balance
So
it? Because you're always kind of like adding
yeah.
things on, taking things away.
Good question. So one of the things that I started to do last August is I create a to-do list. And so on my iPhone under notes, I have this thing as a to-do list. And on there it has weekly task, daily task, dream task.
Oh,
So in a
dream.
dream world,
Okay.
when I got free time, I'll come back to this. This week, here's the weekly things I want to get done. Today, here's the today things. And I'm okay with the fact that if I don't get it done today, cool. I'm perfectly okay with that, right? And so some
Yeah.
people that can be a challenge for them. Another thing is I use a timer for my work. So even right here, this is my wonderful timer that I
Oh,
use.
cute.
It's a cube. It's got different things. So when I get ready to sit down to do work, because I want to maximize the time, I'll set my timer for that amount. And then once it's
Yep.
done, I get up, move around, and do something else. Another thing that I do to create balance is seeing a therapist.
Amen.
I've
I
done
love it.
individual therapy. I've done group therapy, I've done couples therapy, and now I'm back at individual, and I'm loving it. I'm loving the things that I'm able to unpack, and I think the most high about addressing your mental health and finding
Yep.
someone to talk that through. And then another thing that I do for myself is to start mapping things out. I have a business coach, and one of the things our business coach is a part of a group program, and I do coaching myself. But one of the things she had us do was to plan out our year in quarters. Well, one thing she told us
That's
to
what
do was
I'm
to
trying
write
to
out
do.
put on your calendar, write out every single event, every doctor's appointment, every therapist appointment, every birthday. She said, put it all on the calendar. And then for your business or for your professional life, work it around quarters. It's much more easier to manage 3 months, 3 to 4 months, than it is
Yeah.
to manage an entire year. That can be overwhelming. So I started implementing
Yeah.
that practice for myself. So I have set up everything. I know every week what I plan on doing for this
Yeah.
first quarter, and I'm looking forward to it. But it's taking time to do that. I relax. I end my day technically around 4 o'clock because I go pick up my child from daycare. But
Hmm.
even before that, I still would end my day an hour early. As a professional, I wouldn't schedule a meeting after 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Even
No.
now, I don't take meetings generally unless it's really important before 10 o'clock. My meetings
Yep.
start at 10, my day ends at 4. But I'm
Yep.
maximizing those 6 hours. I'm more productive in those 6 hours than some people are in 12 because
Yeah.
I know exactly what I'm trying to do and to accomplish. So I don't extend myself beyond what I want to. I start my day with reading the Bible. I exercise
Amen.
in the morning. I get a good breakfast. I intentionally set me first. and then
Yeah,
the work, and then I end with me, and then my family, and that's how
we
my
love it.
life and stuff is organized.
And when do you feel like you started doing that? Because again, like your different identities get added at different times of getting married, then you have your daughter, and then your parents have passed away as well. So I know that like
Mm-hmm.
that can be a life changing thing. So do you feel like there's been ebbs
Absolutely.
and flows and waves of this, or you gradually kept increasing these skills, use them at different times? Like, did you ever try different routines?
Yeah, I think that last job I had before I decided to go get the PhD was the catalyst for me to need to change my work behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I was always available, even on vacation. I couldn't understand, like, it wasn't until after the fact. It's like you literally would take vacation time and still be on. So you're getting paid to take a break, but you're working on your break. That's not paid. Like you're
Yeah,
doing
no.
labor. And so I promised myself that when I started that degree, that doctoral degree in 2014, that I would never go back to working in the ways that I did after the degree. I would never work after the degree in the ways that I did before.
Yep.
So that means I started to set boundaries in time. And I will say I'm really thankful that even the desire to pursue the degree started to help me create all my own personal boundaries. And things have evolved,
Yeah.
right? The pandemic, losing my parents has caused me to
Yeah.
really pause and say, not that my parents or family didn't matter, but it definitely mattered a lot. But it required me to think about how much time I'm intending to spend with my family. Quality time, not just the
Yeah.
presence of a text
Yeah.
message or a phone call on occasion, but quality time. And I value that. My family, I tell people, is God, family, everything else after that. And so I will stop everything at the drop of a dime if something's going on with my wife, my child, or another family member, because that's just what I
Yeah.
value the most. But it's taking time
Yeah.
to get there. And every year I try to implement a new and improved strategy and remove those things that no longer serve me and are ways that are beneficial for me personally, professionally, or mentally. If
Yeah.
it don't do right, it's gotta go.
See, and this is great. I feel like for like just so many gems. And this time for season two, I'm doing better at taking notes and when people are talking because I get caught up in the conversation. But I'm like, I need to write down these things for myself, but also so I can share it out in different ways with the people listening and following because this was a lot that people need to sit and marinate on for themselves now. I would say even just to have a better 2024. Like I think social media is poo. We all know that. But on social media, I don't personally feel like generally positivity is being shared and like
Mm-mm.
how to be better and how to do better, but I have like a slight inkling that in 2024, people are going to be trying to do better though and figure things out because I think that just as a society, the pandemic was 4 years ago now, wild,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but it really like affected us for these whole 4 years. And I know for myself personally, I'm like, okay, 2024, we are going to create the new and improved version of myself. And not like to say that things weren't the best before because it was ebbs and flows. Life is always doing something. But I feel like everybody says 2019 was like the best year and we didn't know what was going to happen after that, so it's like I
Mm-hmm.
want to get back to like the feelings of 2019 without saying let's go back 5 years, like let's like recreate and implement and do these new things, but social media doesn't help, so I'm trying to figure out for myself my like routines and things I want to do because to be honest, I'm not good at routines. I can get stuff done,
Mm-hmm.
as we all know, and that's why people are always shocked when I say this, but I do not do well at routines at all. So I'm trying to do better at that for sure and like
Could I
maximizing my
offer you a
time.
suggestion to consider?
Yes, of course.
I think it might be about what do you want your day to look like? When
Yes.
you have finished the day, what do you want to say that you feel good about? Did
Yeah.
I feel good about how I spent time reading? Did I feel good about being able the work that I did today? Do I feel good about the meetings? And even if you don't feel good about it, it's just set the intention, you
Yeah.
know. And so that intention I think is super important because I think some folks sometimes we try to strategize and do work in the ways that other people do that don't fit our
No,
personalities or
you
our
need to
work
do what
style.
works for
And I'm not
you.
for doing that. Yeah, absolutely,
Exactly.
100%. And so, I think it's about what do I want my day to look like, what I want my month to look like, what I want my year to look like. And it's still early, enough in the year to think about that.
Yeah.
How many vacations do I want to take? Who are the people that I want to talk to? What do I want to learn? And even if you don't have names next to that, just what do you want to say in 24? I think
Yeah.
back to 1919, I had a great time. I was just enjoying life. I
We
didn't know what was
didn't
going to
know.
come in 2020. And I was really
Exactly.
enjoying life. And so that's what I am doing, is setting more intention. One thing that I love to do is bowling, and I haven't gotten into it. And so next week, I'm going back to the bowling alley. It's been a
We love it.
while, but that's something I love doing. So I'm taking away some of that fatherhood time, some of that
Yeah.
husband time, to get to the place of things that I enjoy for me.
Yeah. But
Because
that's
they gonna take
important.
all their time that they need, but I need to take
Exactly.
sure I take time for myself.
And that's important because if you don't take time for yourself, then you have no full cup for other people. And I think that's another thing
Mm-hmm.
with parenthood now, as again as millennial parents, that I love seeing my friends that are parents doing. Like I do feel like they're putting themselves first, and they might feel a little bad about it sometimes, like just because like you're like, oh my god, like I want to be with my child, or what are they doing, or like they've never been away from me, all those things. But a lot of my friends really are doing great at that. Like I'll call them and they're like, "Oh, I'm here." I'm like, "Oh, like, do you have your daughter or your son?" They're like, "Oh no, they're at the house, or they're with their grandma, or they're here." Like every Thursday, grandpa's coming to get her. Like I love that for everybody because we saw our parents just push through and like work hard to make sure that they were present at their expense of their exhaustion or them being tired and like not really pouring into themselves.
Yeah, life is short. Life is short. Losing both of my parents 6 months apart from each other. Echo that. Life is truly short. I mean, just a quick story. I went and started January of 2020 in Hawaii. I was at a conference, and the next week, my mother told me she had cancer. And this was 3 months after my father had passed. And then a week after that, my mother in law told me she had cancer. So I lost my father in October of 19, and then my mother in April of 2020, and then my mother in law in July. You can't
Yeah.
predict none of that is going to
And
happen.
honestly, I didn't realize it was that recent, quote unquote, still. Like, I don't know why
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was like before, but I feel like the pandemic to now has made time seem like weird. But I
Mm-hmm.
definitely thought that this was like earlier on, not 2019,
Yeah.
2020.
No, it's still relatively recent. And so I'm still working through navigating grief and loss and what does it look like. And the place now that makes it the most difficult is every day I see my child and I'm like, I wonder if I did that. And I can't ask that question. I can
Yeah.
ask the question of myself, but I can't get the answer. And so
Yeah.
parenting when you don't have parents is a whole new challenge to navigate. But
Yeah.
I'm thankful that I got a village of people and folks who are around who are supportive that I can reach out to and that I do reach
Yeah.
out to, who offer me really great sound advice and wisdom. And I'm a parent at a later age. Right? I had our child was born when I was 38, and so that means that I have a level of some wisdom, some experience,
Yeah.
some money that I can invest into her. That, what, if I had this 10, 15 years ago, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
Yeah.
about the fact that my wife was pregnant months after we finished our doctoral degrees.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that child did not reach the term, stillbirth at 28 weeks. But I'm thinking, like, was I ready then? Like, what I know now and I do
Yeah.
now, could I
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
done then? Probably not. No,
But
no.
life, even though there are such hard times, like what you experience in your life is for a reason and purpose of helping you get to where you're supposed to be and where you're going. And it really
Mm-hmm.
does not feel like it in those moments for sure. Like it does
Oh,
not feel
absolutely
like
not.
that at all. Like in those moments, you're like, what is happening and how am I going to make it?
Absolutely. And you have it. You have it within you. I believe everybody has it within them
Yeah.
to be able to figure out how to navigate it. It may not look the way we want it to, but we can get through things.
Yeah.
We
No, for
as human
sure.
beings, we are built to navigate some very difficult things. And I think as Black folks, we are we hyper whatever it is, hyper of that. We have a level of
Yeah.
tenacity, ability, and skills to navigate anything.
Yeah. Wow. This was great, Justin. Lastly, I'm sitting here reflecting on myself. I feel like this again was just like helpful and so great for me. I'm
That's
really proud
good
of
though.
you.
That means it's something I said or done has had an impact, and
No, it
that's
has.
really truly what I feel life is for me to do is to have an impact on a positive way.
Exactly. I loved it. Let the people know where they can find you, your website. I will link all this in the show notes as well, but let them know your Instagram, website, how they can contact you, all that stuff, and any final words you would like to leave them with.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely check out the website, applytograduateschool.com. That's TO, not the number two. So applytograduateschool.com. You can follow us on social media at apply the number two G school on social media, or follow me at my personal page at I am Jay Grimes. You can also look at the website for other things that I have and things that are going on related to the event. So I tell people I do coaching, I do workshops, I do one-on-one meetings with people. I wrote a book. I'm working on two more now.
Okay, author.
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, one is going to be related to around DEI and like how do we help professionals who assume the role of responsibility or in it navigate that change? Because
Yep.
sometimes people are just on the roll and they're like, "What the hell am I supposed to do?" Great question. Let's read this book. And then my next book also is going to be about the pivot. I really want to help people navigate pivots and changes in their careers. So if that's you, you're in that place or position. Don't let the title graduate school fool you. I'm here
Yeah.
as a coach to help people navigate that, and I'm good at it. I know what I'm
Yep.
good at and skilled at doing. And my things that I will part people with is to truly believe in yourself. And as a professional adult, I will tell you this is again, I said it earlier, extract as much as you can from the position and the place you in before you exit. But do plan the exit plan and plan your future now. Don't wait for tomorrow.
Yes.
Don't compare to nobody else. If this is the thing you're wanting to do, you're skilled at, you're gifted at doing, do that. Don't wait.
Yes.
People need that. Somebody needs that. You right now, I wish I had somebody I knew who was skilled at sewing because I got some stuff that got some holes that I want to keep. But we need that. To somebody else, it's like, oh, I could just sew that
Yeah.
together. No, 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 no. Everybody doesn't have that skill set. And the last
Yeah.
piece I will tell people if they're thinking about graduate school is definitely get the book, 20 Questions to Answer Before You Apply to Graduate School. Buy it from the website or Amazon. But more importantly, if you're thinking about it, really determine, do you have capacity for more education? If you're
That
thinking
part.
about becoming a parent, do you have more capacity in your life to navigate supporting a whole nother life? If you're thinking about making career change or pivot or something different in your professional space, do you have capacity for that? If you do not, that's okay. But let's
Yeah.
think and reevaluate what we're going to do before we decide to just jump into something, if that is
Yeah.
possible.
Well, thank you. Thank you everybody for listening. This was great. I wrote down things that I need to get situated in my own life. So I know everybody else does as well. So thank you so much again, Justin, for coming on the show.
Absolutely. I appreciate you.